After being discarded by an avoidant, you might be wondering, did this person ever even love me? Did they care about me at all? Because when they abruptly ended the relationship, they were cold. They were shut down. Their eyes almost had this dead look. They showed you no empathy. They gave you no closure. They gave you little to no explanation as to why the relationship had to end. Just vague excuses like they couldn't give you what you needed and they just weren't ready for a relationship or they didn't see a future together or even worse, they just lost feelings for you. So it feels like it was never real. It feels like they never loved you. So did they? Well, the answer is it's complicated. Unlike a person who's a narcissist with a personality disorder who actually can't love, an avoidant is capable of love. It's an insecure attachment style. But that doesn't mean they did love you, at least not the same way you love them. This is a person with a lot of walls up. This is a person that fears vulnerability, that tries to suppress emotions rather than express them and feel them. This is a person that grew up in a childhood where they received consistent emotional neglect and their own feelings were dismissed. They had nobody to ever show them how to process emotions. They had to stuff them and put on a happy face. So they learned to avoid. That's what they figured out to do on their own, is just to avoid dealing with anything stressful or uncomfortable. And emotions were very uncomfortable and very unwelcome in their childhoods. So now, as an adult, they built these walls around their heart because they personalized that neglect, growing up to feel unlovable and defective. And their subconscious fear is if I lower my walls and I let my partner in, my partner is going to figure out that I'm not good enough and they're going to reject me. So, because of these walls and because of that fear of vulnerability and because of that fear of intimacy, it becomes hard for them to form a deep bond, a deep love with a partner. And they often confuse dopamine fueled infatuation with love. But infatuation, that is just that spark, that chemistry, that excitement early on in the relationship. And it really is largely fueled by dopamine, which is the reward hormone. That goes off in the brain, especially in the honeymoon phase. But that honeymoon phase generally ends between 4 to 8 months. The brain can't sustain that level of dopamine, and the dopamine comes down. And when the dopamine comes down, the only thing left for the avoidant is their insecurities. Now, their insecurities of being vulnerable, of being rejected, trying to meet expectations, fears of disappointing you, etc., fears of losing their autonomy, that's what comes to the limelight. And because they never really formed that deep bond, that deep love with you, the insecurities took over the show and it became easy for them to shut down, suppress whatever feelings they have for you, and push you away. So, did they love you? To their capability, they did. To their capacity, they did. But that doesn't mean it's a level of love that you're looking for. It doesn't mean it was the same level of love that you had for them. It doesn't mean that it was a deep love. Now, are they capable of a deep love? They are, if they lower their walls and work on themselves and work towards healing. And dismissive avoidants are going to have a much harder time forming that deep love than a fearful avoidant, especially because dismissive avoidants are the pure avoidant and they really are not in touch with their own emotions. Fearful avoidants often understand their own emotions, but they also can get triggered and shut down, and they also do fear expressing themselves. But it is easier for them to form a deep love, and many do form deep loves with their partners. For dismissive avoidance, that vulnerability, that fear of that, it makes it so incredibly hard for them to really deeply bond with their partner and allow themselves to feel it, let alone express it. So the answer is they were largely infatuated with you, and they probably did love you to their capability, to their capacity. But ultimately, your feelings, your love and their love were not on the same level because their attachment wounds didn't let them get there. They didn't allow themselves to get to that level of a bond because if they did, if they were bonded to you the way that you were bonded to them, they never would have walked away and shut down the way they did. So that does require a certain lack of a bond in order to be able to do. And it's not because of you. It's not because of your worth. It's nothing to do with anything you did wrong, especially if you showed up as a loving person to them and they did this to you anyway. It's a reflection of their insecurities, their fears, their lack of self-awareness. It's not a reflection of you at all, because they're the ones that are missing out. Because you will find that deep love, that deep bond. They won't unless they do some serious work on themselves. So it hurts. It hurts a lot. But now, keep this in mind. You're free to find someone that will return that love in the way that you give it to them.